Sri Lanka, a small island overflowing with diversity, color, history, and heart. From mist-covered hills to ancient cities lost in the jungle, from golden beaches and wildlife safaris to colorful temples and spicy street food, Sri Lanka has it all. In this video, I'll take you on a 12-day journey across the island, through Sri Lanka's most iconic destinations and some local spots you won't find in the guidebooks. From the southern beaches to the historical temples of Kandy and Dambulla, the ancient ruins of Polonnaruwa, the dramatic cliffs of Sigiriya, the sacred city of Anuradhapura, all the way to the north in Jaffna, and deep into the wilderness of 4 different national parks. I'll show you the landscapes, the people, the cultural experiences, and the small everyday moments that make Sri Lanka special. I will share with you practical advice for your journey and my honest take on everything. Let's go explore this surprising island together. We're starting our adventure on Hikkaduwa Beach. The ocean here is calm and inviting, perfect for a morning snorkel. As you walk on the beach, you'll see a small roped-off snorkeling area. Even though the water was crowded with boats and swimmers, we were surprised to find that this little spot is filled with life beneath the surface. We saw schools of colorful fish, some parrotfish, and a pufferfish. Despite the bustle on the beach, it felt peaceful floating in the water. You'll also find dive shops and dive schools around this area. A short walk to the south side of the beach will bring you to Turtle Beach, which is less peaceful. Here, we saw giant turtles right up the shore. Sadly, the scene was chaotic. Tourists climbing over one another to see and interact with the turtles, ignoring the signs asking people not to disturb the animals. It was hard to watch. You can even buy algae and feed the turtles. I am aware that I too filmed the scene, contributing to the problem. When Mike and I saw the chaos, we just left, wishing the turtles well, and wishing for all of us to be more mindful travelers. We headed to Galle, a city that feels like stepping back in time. Galle is a blend of history, culture, and coastal charm. The old fortified city, first established by Portuguese colonists, is a UNESCO World Heritage Site built around a 16th century Dutch fort. The fort stands proudly above the Indian Ocean, its walls wrapping around the maze of cobblestone streets lined with colonial-era buildings. The narrow lanes of the old city are full of character. Little cafes spilling onto the streets, small shops, and art galleries, giving the place a faintly European feel, yet infused with Sri Lanka's warmth and rhythm of life. We wandered through the streets, paused by the lighthouse, and stopped along the fortified walls to admire the sea. Leaving Galle, we stopped briefly near Kogala, famous for its stilt fishermen. This centuries-old fishing tradition, known as Ritipana, has become more of a tourist attraction. A few men were perched on their poles, offering to demonstrate how they fish for a small fee. We chose to simply watch from the beach. It's still an interesting sight, even if this practice survives more as a symbol of Sri Lankan heritage than as a way of life. Further along on the coast, our driver Sanchita pulled over at a beachside snack to get the perfect roadside refreshment, a freshly cut coconut. Drinking delicious coconut water straight from its shell, with the ocean stretching endlessly before you, is such a simple, yet perfect pleasure. Next up, the secret beach near Mirissa. Getting here is an adventure in itself. The road is narrow, hilly, and winding. You can either walk or hire a tuk-tuk. It's much faster and way more fun to ride a tuk-tuk. Even though Secret Beach is not so secret, it's worth the journey. The water here is crystal clear. There are 2 small coves tucked under swaying palms and a laid-back beach bar. It's easy to see why this spot has become a favorite place for a quiet swim or a lazy afternoon. Not far from here is Coconut Tree Hill, a small hill covered with tall palm trees overlooking the sea. This is a very popular photo stop in Sri Lanka, especially around sunset, when the light turns everything golden. The people gathered here, each chasing the perfect Instagram shot, make it feel more like a social media pilgrimage than a peaceful lookout. Still, this little place is very photogenic and worth a quick stop. Our coastal drive continued to Polhena Beach, a local beach near Matara. The beach was full of families, kids splashing in the shallows, couples strolling by the tide, music playing faintly in the background. This beach is sheltered by coral reefs, so the waves are calm, and it's a good spot to catch sight of sea turtles in the wild. From here, we made a quick detour to the Damro Head Lighthouse, the southernmost point of Sri Lanka. The lighthouse was closed, but even from outside the gates, it's a beautiful sight. Tall, white and weathered, standing on the island's edge, the lighthouse is surrounded by palm trees and curious monkeys leaping from branch to branch. Before reaching our destination for the night, we stopped at a small temple dedicated to Lord Vishnu, the protector of travelers and the god of intelligence. Sanchita made a small offering at the donation box, explaining he always does this when passing by, a way to ask for blessings and a safe journey. It seems to work. Our entire trip in Sri Lanka went smoothly. We ended the day at a roadside cafe, family-run and very simple. We tried kuttu roti, a Sri Lankan comfort food made of chopped flatbread, vegetables and eggs. It came with a side of spicy chicken curry. Absolutely delicious. As night fell, we drove towards Bundala National Park. Our headlights caught a massive elephant standing in the middle of the road. We stopped far enough and waited, quietly, until he decided to move on. In Sri Lanka, nature is never far away. Even though we made plenty of stops on our first day on the island, we never felt rushed. Thanks to Sanchita's expert and fast driving, we had plenty of time to enjoy the journey. Our morning begins with another elephant blocking the road, just outside Bundala National Park. Wildlife here has the right of way, especially because you don't want to mess with an elephant. We stopped and waited until he decided to move on, lumbering slowly into the bush. Today, we have booked an early morning birding safari with Sri Mal, a local naturalist and guide. At 6 a.m., the air is soft and cool, and the park is very quiet, with only a few jeeps touring around. It feels like the landscape belongs to just us and the birds. Bundala National Park is a UNESCO Biosphere Reserve and an important wetland. The landscape is a mosaic of lagoons, salt pans, and sand dunes stretching across 62 square kilometers. It's a sanctuary for nearly 200 bird species, from tiny sunbirds to eagles, storks, pelicans, ducks and pigeons. During migration season, thousands of shorebirds come here, from as far as Siberia. We spent 3 blissful hours drifting through the park. Peacocks trotted across the paths, their mesmerizing tails glowing in the morning light, while others perched high in the trees. Troops of monkeys leapt between the branches. A gray-headed fish eagle was surveying the water. Herons and storks stood poised in the wetland. And one crocodile slid silently from the bank, eyes fixed on a bird that managed to escape just in time. In the distance, a jackal trotted through the grass, while a monitor lizard was suntanning on a rock. We stopped near a quiet beach on the edge of the park for a quick breakfast, the only place where it's safe to step out of the vehicle. The ocean extended towards the horizon, and the salty breeze mingled with the calls of shorebirds and the faint cry of our fish eagle.
My name is Sri Mal. Around here, the naturalist. This is my village also here at the Bundala National Park. 18 years I am doing the guiding. I have so many experience with wildlife. This park is very quiet. Bird watching is better in the morning, mainly. But evening we can see some mammals, some elephants, something like buffaloes, crocodiles.
We came to Bundala National Park early morning to see the birds. There were no bigger mammals in sight at this time of the day. The experience was peaceful, and we enjoyed our ride with Sri Mal, who is an excellent bird spotter. Leaving Bundala behind, we continued north, towards Udawalawe National Park. Along the way, Sanchita suggested a very local treat, fresh buffalo curd, topped with sweet coconut honey, eaten with a spoon made from a folded coconut leaf. We stopped at a small roadside stand, run by a family he knows, where the curd was made fresh that morning. It was creamy and rich, a perfect sweet treat. The old man serving the curd cracked open some tamarind pods and offered for us to try the sour pulp straight from the shell. Simple and delicious.
You see it, whole thing.
You just chew the outer parts of it, then throughout the sea.
This short roadside stop is one of those small moments that make travel so exciting. Udawalawe National Park is separated from the road by an electric fence, keeping the animals safely inside. An older elephant was wandering close to the fence next to the road. Sanchita spotted it, and we stopped to say hello, taking a moment to admire his gentle, elderly face. As we arrived at our lodge near the park, the rain began to pour. There wasn't much to do that evening except relax, admire the forest behind the lodge, and wait for our morning safari. We are setting out before dawn on a safari adventure. Udawalawe National Park is one of Sri Lanka's most famous wildlife reserves. By 5:45 a.m., a small convoy of jeeps was already lined up outside the gates. Everyone was eager to be among the first to enter when the park opens. We had booked a 6-hour safari, hoping to venture deeper into the park than the shorter morning tours do. Udawalawe is known for its large elephant population. Over 600 elephants roam freely here. That morning, the park felt overcrowded with jeeps. When a family of elephants with babies appeared on the roadside, within moments, vehicles swarmed in from every direction, surrounding them completely. The adult elephants closed ranks around their young, with no clear path to retreat. Human desire for the perfect photo or a thrilling encounter can sometimes overwhelm the very wildlife we came to admire. As much as we wanted to see the elephants of Udawalawe, this was difficult to watch. Yet, we couldn't turn back. We were caught in a crowd of jeeps with no way out. The park really needs to educate guides and safari drivers on how to behave responsibly and what boundaries to set for their guests. Of course, every guide is eager to earn tips and offer the best experience, but that shouldn't come at the expense of the animals' well-being. As the day went on, we saw quite a range of animals: white-spotted deer hiding between the bush, jungle fowl, Sri Lanka's colorful national birds, a crested hawk eagle, and other raptors soaring overhead. There were parakeets, monkeys, crocodiles, and of course, more elephants. The park is divided into two main ecosystems: a dry zone with open grasslands and sparse vegetation, and a green zone where the trees cluster thickly along the water. We stopped for breakfast in the wild, looking at a family of monkeys running around. Facilities in Udawalawe are minimal. There are no restrooms inside the park, and you can only step out of your jeep at the designated lunch area. By lunch, the endless jolting over bumpy tracks began to wear us down. Maybe a 3-hour safari in this park is enough. We hoped for a more tranquil and immersive experience, but the sheer volume of jeeps made our safari feel more like a convoy. Still, amid the chaos, there were moments of beauty. An eagle perched on a tree, a lone elephant disappearing into the bush, the quiet hum of the wild, when our driver cut off his engine. After the safari, we headed north, towards Ella, climbing slowly into the hill country. On the way, we stopped at Ravana Falls, a tall, multi-tiered waterfall that tumbles down through the forest. Named after the legendary King Ravana from an ancient Indian epic, the waterfall is said to have hidden caves where King Ravana held Princess Sita captive. During the rainy season, the cascading water thunders with life. In the dry season, the stream is smaller, framed by lush greenery. We had planned to hike up Little Adams Peak that afternoon. The hike is part of a scenic trail that also goes by the 9 Arches Bridge, one of Sri Lanka's most photographed landmarks. As we arrived, torrential rain swept across the hills, the kind of tropical downpour that soaks you in seconds. So we postponed the hike. If you're visiting, look into this hike. The views from the top are said to be spectacular. That night, we stayed with a local family in the hills of Ella, in a small guest house with a view that took our breath away. From our terrace, we could see the mist rolling through the valley, waterfalls cascading in the distance, and the train curving through the hills right below us. As night fell, fireflies blinked among the trees, and when the clouds cleared, the sky filled with stars. At night, downtown Ella transforms into a lively, glowing little town. We had dinner at Chill Cafe. Sanchita took us there. He told us that this is the #1 rated restaurant in the entire country. The food was fantastic. Ella is a lovely town with a perfect blend of energy and calm, perched between the mountains and the clouds. Day 4 begins in the dark, long before sunrise. We left Ella around 4:30 in the morning, bundled up against the mountain chill, on our way to Lipton's Seat, a very famous viewpoint. The road winds upwards through sleepy villages and silent tea fields until we reached a small Hindu temple beside the Damro Tea Factory. From here, a short tuk-tuk ride, 20 minutes of bouncing along steep, misty roads, took us up to the top. We were the first to arrive. 2 friendly dogs trotted up to greet us as we stepped into the icy wind. It was cold, foggy, and almost eerily quiet, the kind of silence that only mountains hold. As dawn broke, the mist lifted to reveal faint outlines of the Emerald Valley below. It wasn't a dramatic sunrise that morning, but when the fog thinned, the view of the rolling tea estates was breathtaking. Lipton's Seat takes its name from Sir Thomas Lipton, the Scottish tea magnate who once stood here surveying his vast tea empire. From this spot, on a clear day, you can see across 7 provinces of Sri Lanka, a patchwork of tea fields, forests, and distant hills fading into the horizon. Even with the wind beating our faces, there was something magical about standing where history and landscape meet to understand how deeply tea has shaped the history of this island. After our descent, we stopped near the factory for breakfast, a steaming cup of tea milk and soft spring hoppers filled with sweet coconuts. Sanchita always knows the best local places to eat, the kind you'll never find on your own. Next, we made our way to the 9 Arches Bridge, one of the most photographed spots in Sri Lanka. From the trailhead, it was about a 20-minute hike down through the forest to the railway tracks. The bridge itself is a graceful arc of stone, framed against the backdrop of lush greenery and tall palms. There are small cafes perched along the slopes, where you can wait for the train to rumble past. We didn't have time to watch the train cross the bridge. We wanted to be on the train, so we hurried to Ella Station to catch it. The trains in Sri Lanka don't always run on schedule. Ours was about an hour late, but somehow that's part of the charm. From Ella Station, we boarded a train bound for Nanuoya. This stretch is often described as one of the most beautiful train rides in the world. We opted for a second-class ticket, as this carriage has windows that open so we can take photos. The train rose past misty forests, tea plantations, and sleepy villages. Vendors moved between the aisles, calling out, "Hot peanuts! Hot peanuts!" At every bend, passengers lean out the door for photos, the famous hanging out of the train shots you'll see everywhere, while the landscape slips by like a moving watercolor. The journey took nearly 4 hours instead of the usual 3. Don't count on trains being on time here. While I wouldn't say this was the most beautiful train ride in the world, it's definitely a must-have experience in Sri Lanka. At Nanuoya, Sanchita met us with his ever-present smile. We drove to Moon Plains near Nuwara, a high plateau surrounded by potato fields and vegetable farms. From the base, you have to take a jeep to reach the top, a bumpy ride that costs about 5,000 rupees. The summit offers a 360-degree views of the Central Highlands. Locals call it Minnie's World End, a smaller cousin of the dramatic World End viewpoint at Horton Plains. The views are indeed lovely, but perhaps not quite worth the steep ticket price. If you're pressed for time, skip Moon Plains. This morning, I am very excited to take you to Horton Plains National Park, the most beautiful hike we did in Sri Lanka. Horton Plains is a UNESCO World Heritage Site and sits 2,000 meters above sea level. It's a fragile ecosystem, a mix of grasslands and cloud forest, home to sambar deer, rare birds, and the elusive Sri Lankan leopard. The park's beauty lies in its vast open spaces, rolling hills, and the ever-shifting dance of clouds and sunlight. We entered the park through the Patipola Gate to hike the World's End Trail, a 9.5-kilometer loop. At the entrance of the hike, a sambar deer, a big buck, wandered lazily down the path, completely unbothered by us. More deer lingered around the parking area, nibbling on the grass and posing. This trail takes you through a landscape that seems to change with every turn. From open plains of golden grasses rippling in the wind like an endless sea, to shady woodlands, past small streams and lush vegetation, and up onto rocky ridges. Walking the path, I felt surrounded by nature's beauty, as the gentle songs of frogs followed us along the way. The park has many signs warning hikers what to do if they encounter a leopard. This peaceful plateau is their territory. We didn't have a chance encounter with a leopard, just a tiny curious squirrel who approached us, scurrying quickly around our feet. Along the trail, we also spotted a tiny rhino-horned lizard, bright-eyed and standing still, blending perfectly into the forest floor. I was hoping we'd spot a rhino-horned lizard and was so excited to take his photo. Baker's Falls is tucked into the cloud forest, its twin cascades framed by rugged rocks. The water flows into a small pool with a loud, misty spray that adds to its charm. But then we came into the real highlight of this hike, World's End. Standing at the edge of this sheer drop with the valley stretching endlessly below us is a fantastic experience. A thin barbed wire fence marks the edge, and beyond it, the view plunges straight into the clouds. Just be careful standing on the edge. A little further along, the mini World's End offers a smaller version of the same spectacle. We were told to start the hike early, as mist can set in by early afternoon and cover the views. As we were exhausted by our previous mornings, we slept in and arrived at the park around 10 a.m. This turned out to be a great decision for us. A lot of people were leaving the trail as we started our hike. Most of the way, we were totally by ourselves. We also deliberately chose to do the loop in reverse, leaving World's End Viewpoint for last. Most people start their hike towards World's End to see the dramatic view first before it disappears into the clouds. But luck was on our side. When we arrived, the sun was shining and the valley below was clear. After the hike, we drove back through the Ambewela highlands, an area of wide pastures and grazing cows. Sanchita pointed out a sign proudly declaring this region the largest dairy farm in Asia. He told us their factory processes over 100,000 liters of milk a month. We stopped at the Ambewela Farm itself. They have a roadside shop at the gate of the farm, where Sanchita ordered local yogurt with honey. Yummy! The best yogurt in Sri Lanka, according to Sanchita. From here, we continued towards Nuwara, often called Little England for its colonial charm and cool climate. The city is said to have the cleanest air in Sri Lanka, also the coolest. The microclimate here feels that way, crisp and refreshing after the humid coast. We passed by the city's red brick post office, one of the oldest in the country, and the Grand Hotel, a colonial-era landmark. This region is the heart of Sri Lanka's vegetable and dairy production, its rolling hills dotted with greenhouses and farm plots. Our next stop is the Damro Tea Factory, one of the island's oldest and most iconic tea estates. Spread across many hectares of lush, mist-covered hills, this plantation has been producing world-class tea for generations. The factory processes about 2,000 kilos of tea per day, plucked entirely by hand.
That area called fermentation area. It is open place that is getting natural oxygen. Fermentation only for the black tea, white tea, green tea, no fermentation. White tea, ma'am, I told only the tiny tips, natural sun-dried, that's it. Green tea, steaming, rolling, drying green tea. This everything black tea. More caffeine, more tannin black tea. Green tea less tannin, white tea doesn't tannin. No caffeine white. You can see over there, that machine we call tea dryer. One more time drying. Take the temperature 125 Celsius. Very hot. We used fire, burning wood fire. No electricity, no gas. Because the wood fire gives a little bit smoking flavor, that's good for the taste.
The free factory tour was short but fascinating, showing us each step of the process, from withering and rolling to fermentation and drying, followed by a warm cup of complimentary tea and a slice of tea cake at the tasting lounge overlooking the fields. There's something so relaxing about sipping tea while looking out over the very hills that produced it. Next, we're making a brief stop at the Ramboda Falls and Viewpoint. There are two waterfalls here. We only saw the lower one on the roadside from up close. Since we didn't have time for a longer hike up to the main waterfall, Sanchita brought us to a terrace of a wood carving shop. You have to go through the store to get up to their terrace for the best view of the falls. Here you can see the upper waterfall at a distance. We also passed the Kandalama Reservoir, one of the largest hydroelectric projects in the country. Both places are worth a 10-minute stop to take some photos. That evening, we had dinner at a small roadside cafe with plastic chairs, open walls, and fantastic aromas wafting from the kitchen. The food was delicious: spiced lentils, chicken curry, and warm flatbread. The owners seemed amused to see us eating with spoons rather than with our hands. In Sri Lanka, people don't use utensils to eat their food. And, according to Sanchita, food tastes better when you use your hands. Today, we are visiting Sri Lanka's spiritual heart and one of the country's most sacred sites, the Temple of the Sacred Tooth Relic in Kandy. Multicolored Buddhist flags flutter in the morning breeze, and vendors sell baskets of jasmine and lotus blossoms for offerings. This temple complex, with its white walls and golden roof, is said to house the left canine tooth of the Buddha, one of the most venerated relics in the Buddhist world. The temple sits beside the old royal palace and is part of a vast compound of shrines, stupas, and courtyards. Visiting the temple is an important ritual. Look at the carved wooden beams, exquisite craftsmanship. At the entrance, vivid murals depict scenes from Buddhist stories, while towering ivory tusks are framing the inner doorways. Inside, the crowd thickens. We follow the procession of people headed to the altar. Families carrying flowers move slowly towards the relic chamber. The altar overflows with blossoms, layers upon layers of color and fragrance, alongside offerings of sweets and sweet drinks. Many visitors wear white, a symbol of purity and respect. In Sri Lanka, it is believed that whoever possesses the tooth relic holds the power to rule the country, making it a significant political and religious symbol. Buddha's tooth rests inside 7 nested gold caskets, decorated with precious stones and shaped like a stupa. The caskets sit on a throne, placed on a golden lotus flower. The relic is kept on the 2nd floor of the temple and can be viewed 3 times a day during religious ceremonies. Visitors can only see the casket, not the tooth inside. If you have time, it's worth attending a ceremony, pausing for a few moments to witness the devotion and absorb the atmosphere. We also visited a smaller shrine housing ancient palm leaf manuscripts and a museum dedicated to Raja, the famous tusker elephant, who has been preserved for posterity. You see, once a year, Buddha's tooth is taken through Kandy in a grand procession, carried on the back of a decorated ceremonial elephant. We happened to see 2 of those magnificent tuskers being moved by truck. Outside the temple, a flower vendor noticed me taking photos of the flowers and handed me one with a smile. This is a blue water lily, the national flower of Sri Lanka. His kind gesture made me smile all day. I mention it here because it captures just how kind and welcoming the people of Sri Lanka are. After the morning ceremony, we stopped at the Kandy Viewpoint, a popular perch above the city, where you can see Kandy's lake and the city at your feet. Souvenir sellers lean at the edge of the lookout, their stalls filled with colorful trinkets and carved masks. Sanchita suggested that we stop at a woodcarving workshop. We were very reticent at first, but the experience turned out to be very interesting. A craftsman demonstrated how different woods, ebony, mahogany, and sandalwood, produce natural dyes.
This is piece of iron, iron and lime. Iron and lime. This is sandpaper. We have to clean lime because if there are too much lime, then color comes lighter. See now, iron and lime now color darker.
Yeah. Wow. It's like magic.
Chemistry. So now, madam, without iron, you see this is lime.
And we watched artists carve and paint intricate objects by hand. This wasn't just for show. This was real craftsmanship, the kind that's been passed down for generations. A fascinating glimpse into Sri Lanka's traditional wood carving. This particular shop is really big, and everything they produce is made right here. The presentation was educational and free, and there was no pressure for us to buy anything. Here's where you can find the shop we visited. Sanchita also suggested to see the Ruwanwelisaya Spice Garden. Again, we were skeptical at first, but because I love gardens, we decided a quick stop wouldn't take too much of our day. A guide led us through the lush maze of cinnamon trees, cardamom pops, pepper vines, and aloe vera plants. This free tour was surprisingly engaging and informative. The experience felt personal and interactive, worth the stop for that alone. Of course, after hearing about the healing and culinary uses of each plant, it's hard to resist buying some products for home. The prices here are on the expensive side, but I believe the quality is genuine. We left with a few small items: curry powders, coconut oil, and an aloe vera cream, little reminders of Sri Lanka's rich botanical heritage. Sanchita also bought some curry powder for his mom. He said it's the best in the entire country, so whenever he has a chance to stop by, he picks some up for her. We ventured off the main tourist trail to the Nalanda Gedige Temple, the only structure in Sri Lanka built entirely from crystalline limestone. The temple is renowned for its intricate carvings, including rare tantric Buddhist figures, and for its remarkable relocation in 1980, when it was moved stone by stone to prevent it from being submerged by a reservoir. Originally constructed between the 8th and the 10th century, Nalanda Gedige once stood at what was considered the geographical heart of the island. Its blend of Hindu and Buddhist influences gives it a distinct beauty. With hardly any other visitors, the place felt serene and mystical.
Science says that when you say something a lot of times, it has an effect, right? So same thing they believe. They hang these cloths on the bo tree. Now this bo tree is also significant. We respect the bo tree because when Lord Buddha became enlightened, he was sitting under a bo tree, right? So that's why every temple has a bo tree and a stupa.
Monkeys darted playfully through the trees while the stone Buddha sat in quiet meditation, bathed in dapple light. This temple wasn't on our itinerary. Sanchita suggested a stop. This lesser-known place is very peaceful and photogenic. By mid-afternoon, we reached the Dambulla Cave Temple, a UNESCO World Heritage Site. This is the largest and best-preserved cave temple site in the country, housing over 150 statues and hundreds of murals spread across 5 main caves. A place of pilgrimage for more than 2,000 years, its history stretches back in time, with monks inhabiting these caves since the 3rd century BC. The complex sits on top of a massive rock, and reaching it means climbing hundreds of steep steps under the blazing sun. This is where I should mention the temple visits in Sri Lanka are done barefoot. Pro tip: bring socks. You must take your shoes off and the stone gets scorching hot, but wearing socks is allowed. At the summit, a series of caves are carved into the rock face. Each chamber is filled with Buddha statues, small stupas, and vivid murals cover the walls and ceiling. In one cave, a massive reclining Buddha rests beneath a ceiling painted with intricate patterns. The scent of incense hangs in the air, mingling with the sound of chanting and prayer. We stayed here for a while, moving slowly from one cave to the next, absorbing the serenity. This place feels pretty magical. Outside, monkeys lounged along the staircases, curiously watching the visitors. Next door stands a towering golden Buddha seated above the entrance of the Golden Temple. The temple was under renovation during our visit. The head of Buddha already covered in gleaming gold, the body still white, giving it an almost surreal look. To balance out the sacred with the everyday, Sanchita suggested a quick visit to the Dambulla Economic Center, a sprawling hub of Sri Lanka's produce trade. This is where fruits and vegetables from across the country arrive, are weighted, priced, and distributed to markets and restaurants nationwide. Massive trucks came and went. Workers loaded crates in a steady rhythm, and the air buzzed with energy. It's not a tourist stop by any means, but it was interesting to see the behind-the-scenes heartbeat of the country's food system. Before sunset, we made one final detour to the Kandalama Reservoir, a shimmering lake surrounded by jungle and low hills. This ancient reservoir was created around the 1st century BC to provide water for irrigation to the surrounding regions. Here, the road cuts directly through the reservoir's overflow channel. Cars drive through the shallow sheet of the water, while tuk-tuks and scooters use the narrow footbridge beside it. I know it looks so simple, but this water driveway was so much fun to see and experience. We drove on it at least 3 times. If you have time, take a refreshing dip and watch the cars drive by. We are waking up early again for another day of exploration, this time heading into the country's historical heart to visit Polonnaruwa, the ancient city that once served as Sri Lanka's second capital during the island's medieval golden age. Polonnaruwa is a unique archaeological site known for its well-planned city layout, well-preserved ruins of palaces and temples, and its impressive reservoir.
Second capital of Sri Lanka used to be here 1000 years ago. Then this capital city existed for 150 years, only for 1.5 century. From 11th century to 13th century. 1100 to 1300, that is medieval time. Then there were about 20 kings during this period. Then there were 3 good kings out of 20, only 3. So what we are going to see today, those all built by these 3 kings.
To make the most of our visit, we hired Nihao, a local guide recommended by Sanchita. And what a great decision! For about $25, Nihao brought the ruins to life with stories, humor, and insight, weaving together centuries of history that we would have never understood on our own. We began at the Archaeological Museum, where models and scale reconstructions helped us picture what the city once looked like in its prime time. Grand palaces, elaborate council chambers, and bustling marketplaces. This had once been a vibrant royal capital. The Royal Palace complex, with its massive brick walls and intricately carved stone foundations, is believed to have once been a 7-story building with over 1,000 rooms.
If someone entered this palace to attack the king, he gets lost. He can't find his way out.
Nihao explained that the upper floors were made of wood and had burned in a fire centuries ago. Fresh water was supplied through a network of interlocking clay pipes, and several rooms were equipped with squat toilets. Outside the main walls, a septic tank stood ready to receive waste, evidence of the remarkably advanced sanitation system of the time. What a beautiful staircase, so well preserved, each line and curve perfectly measured and crafted. Nearby, we saw the council chamber, where the king held audiences, and an ancient bathing pool fed by a clever gravity-powered system, early Sri Lankan engineering and irrigation design at its finest. Between the inner city and the sacred quadrangle, we walked along what was once a busy bazaar street, lined with traders and craftsmen. The sacred quadrangle is the spiritual heart of Polonnaruwa, a compact area filled with temples and stupas. Among its treasures lies the Stone Book, a massive stone sheet inscribed with ancient texts. The site also features a circular temple believed to have once housed the Buddha's tooth relic, with 4 entrances adorned by carved moonstones and staircases flanked by stone lions.
In Buddhism, there are different sects. In Sri Lanka, we have Theravada Buddhism. It is the most strict sect in Buddhism. Then most of these stupas contain relics or objects. Today, this one is the only temple here with its original roof.
Each of the city's kings left their mark, with ever grander temples and stupas. From a towering 24-meter brick stupa to this dazzling white structure against the blue sky, and to this colossal shrine with walls that are 4 meters thick and a soaring interior that once housed an enormous standing Buddha. This was my favorite. Its scale, its quiet stillness, and the intricate carvings into the walls gave it a haunting beauty. And then the masterpiece, a set of 4 Buddha statues carved directly into a single granite rock face, 2 seated, 1 reclining, and 1 standing in a compassionate pose, his arms gently crossed. The craftsmanship is exquisite, and the stone itself, smooth and polished by centuries of wind and sun, seems almost alive. It's an awe-inspiring place. By late morning, the sun was merciless. The stones burned our feet. Socks are essential, so don't forget to bring them. Some visitors chose to explore the ruins by bicycle. As romantic as that sounds, I was quite happy to be in an air-conditioned car, driving between the main sites, instead of wandering around the vast complex in the heat. Even with Sanchita driving us from place to place, we were completely exhausted after 2 hours. Having Nihao with us to explain the stories behind what we were seeing made the experience even more rewarding. After saying goodbye to Nihao, we began the drive towards Sigiriya. Along the roadside, villagers spread freshly harvested rice directly onto the asphalt to dry in the sun, a scene that captures the rhythm of rural life. You'll see people stirring the rice every hour to dry evenly. Then, in 6 to 8 hours, they will sweep it back into sacks, ready for market. And here we are, near the magnificent Sigiriya fortress. We stopped at a small cafe with a view of the rock rising above the lagoon. As the afternoon light softened over the water, it felt like stepping into a postcard. You'll surely remember the first time you lay eyes on this beautiful rock. That evening, Sanchita had arranged for something special, a farm-to-table dinner experience in a nearby village, prepared by a local family he knows. We got there by tuk-tuk, bouncing along a dirt road until we reached a small village house built of clay and cow dung, with a thatched roof of woven coconut leaves. As we arrived, our host greeted us with the beat of a ceremonial drum. The couple who hosted us were warm and generous. They showed us how they prepared each dish from scratch, using traditional tools and methods. We watched as they sliced vegetables with an upside-down blade, built the fire, and skillfully adjusted the heat, while cooking curries in clay pots over the open flames. The curry paste was ground with a stone roller, and we learned how to open a coconut and scrape out its delicious flesh. We tried our hands at a few of the steps, laughing and nodding our way through the language barrier. Dinner was a feast: homegrown rice from the couple's own field and 8 different dishes: okra, long beans, potatoes, pickled vegetables, sambal, fried lake fish, chicken, beef, and a selection of fragrant curries.
Leaves, pickle, papaya, carrot, onion, chili, coconut sambar, leg piece and papada.
We also made homemade desserts to take home with us. After the meal, our hostess demonstrated how she removes rice husks and grinds the grains into flour using a stone roller. She also showed us how they weave palm leaves for their roof, which they replace twice a year. It was a humble, authentic experience and genuine Sri Lankan hospitality. When Sanchita first suggested that we try this farm-to-table experience, we were hesitant, but I'm so glad we followed his advice. According to Sanchita, Sigiriya is the friendliest place in Sri Lanka, and after this evening, we completely agreed. Today begins with a climb, but not the one most travelers choose. Instead of joining the crowds scaling the famous Sigiriya Rock, we decided to hike its quieter neighbor, Pidurangala Rock, a more rugged and equally rewarding alternative. The entry fee was just a few dollars, and the hike felt like an adventure. We started our climb around 7 in the morning, after most of the sunrise crowd had already come down. For us, it was perfect timing. Quiet trails bathed in the golden morning light. The hike begins at a small Buddhist temple, where visitors are asked to cover up before crossing the courtyard. From there, it's a steady climb up. The stone steps gradually give way to a short stretch of rock scrambling near the top. Nothing difficult, just enough to make you feel like you've earned the view. Along the way, we passed a large reclining Buddha carved into the rock, serene and timeless against the stone. The summit of Pidurangala is an open plateau of weathered granites with breathtaking 360-degree views of the surrounding jungle and plains. There was hardly anybody else around. One stray dog lounged lazily in the sun. It felt wonderful to stand on the top of this massive rock, surrounded only by the wind, the sky, and the quiet vastness of the view. Just a kilometer away, Sigiriya Rock rises majestically from the landscape. Seeing Sigiriya from here, without the crowds, felt special. Sigiriya is a massive volcanic monolith, the hardened magma plug of an ancient volcano. The volcano itself is long gone, eroded away by wind and rain over millions of years, leaving only this solid pillar that towers nearly 200 meters above the jungle. At its summit lies the ruins of an ancient fortress and royal palace, complete with gardens, reservoirs, and intricate stone structures built in the 5th century. The name Sigiriya, meaning Lion Rock, comes from the enormous lion statue that once guarded its entrance. Today, only the giant stone paws remain. Designated a UNESCO World Heritage Site, Sigiriya is celebrated not only for its dramatic setting, but also for its cultural treasures, including the mirror wall covered in ancient graffiti and the frescoes of the heavenly maidens. We decided not to climb Sigiriya, partly because of the crowds we expected at the top, and partly because of the steep entry fee. We thought that one climb was enough and picked Pidurangala, so unfortunately I cannot offer a direct comparison for your journey. From here, the drive to Anuradhapura took just over an hour, winding past lush countryside and reflective swamplands that shimmer in the midday sun. We couldn't resist stopping for a few photos. Anuradhapura, the first royal capital and one of the oldest continuously inhabited cities in the world. The city holds the 3 biggest stupas in the country. The ruins here are vast, stretching for miles across plains, lakes and forests. So the only real way to visit is by car, hopping between the ancient stupas and the temple complexes scattered across the landscape. Each site feels like opening a chapter of history, some serene and spiritual, others grand and humbling. We began at the Ruwanwelisaya Stupa, one of the most sacred and beautiful in Sri Lanka. Locals dressed in white moved gracefully around the massive white dome, carrying water lilies and murmuring quiet prayers. Walking around the stupa, always clockwise, is a gesture of respect, often done while chanting, praying, or meditating. I invite you to walk with me for a moment to feel the atmosphere of this sacred place. I loved everything about it. The rhythmic chanting, the fragrance of fresh flowers, the brilliant white stupa gleaming against the sky. There's such a beautiful, peaceful energy here. Ruwanwelisaya is the 3rd largest stupa in the country, crowned with a large crest gem at its top. Offerings of flowers and milk rice are placed around the stupa. Sanchita explained that milk rice holds special meaning. It was the first offering made to the Lord Buddha after his enlightenment. Then a procession began, colorful and vibrant. I noticed people reaching out to touch the golden cloth. So I did the same. This is one of those places where I could stay all day, watching the colors and rituals unfold, taking photos and listening to the steady hum of prayers whispered from the heart. That morning, we were the only foreigners here, an experience that felt almost surreal. Next up is the Jayashri Mahabodhi, a sacred fig tree grown from a cutting from the original Bodhi tree in India, the very one under which the Buddha attained enlightenment. Planted in 288 BC, it's over 2,300 years old, and it's recognized as the oldest human-planted tree still living today. Golden fences, fluttering flags, and the soft rustle of leaves give the place a gentle energy. Some of the branches of the tree have grown so large and heavy that they are now supported by scaffolding to help bear their weight. In this corner, monks are offering special blessings. And here is the Jetavanaramaya Stupa. It was once the 3rd tallest structure on earth, surpassed only by the Great Pyramids of Egypt. Unlike the smooth white stupas found elsewhere, this monument is made of exposed red brick. Though its upper spire has long collapsed, it still towers impressively over the surrounding landscape. The stupa was built over 15 years using 90 million bricks. Today, it's the largest stupa by volume and is celebrated for its engineering marvel, religious importance, and status as a UNESCO World Heritage Site. We also stopped at the Thuparamaya Stupa, the first stupa built in Sri Lanka, which marks the introduction of Buddhism to the island. It is believed to house the right collarbone of the Buddha, making it a revered pilgrimage site. Nearby, water buffaloes grazed lazily beside the flower-covered lagoon, their reflections rippling under the sun. People stood waist-deep in the water, gathering blossoms for worship. Among the smaller, quieter corners of the ancient city, we visited the Samadhi Buddha, a serene, seated statue carved in perfect balance and calm. the embodiment of stillness amid centuries of change. Here is also the Abhayagiriya Stupa, another massive red brick structure with its brightly painted temple housing a reclining Buddha. We admired the guard stones and moonstones throughout the complex, intricate stone carvings that once marked thresholds of sacred places depicting lotus petals, elephants, and mythical creatures. Anuradhapura is a huge complex with many places to visit. It's best to have a car or a tuk-tuk. As always, the sun is scorching hot, but you will find plenty of vendors offering cool drinks or even ice cream. Again, don't forget your temple socks if you don't want to burn your feet. After exploring the green heart of Sri Lanka, we decided to head north, all the way to Jaffna, a region few tourists ever see. This is Tamil country, once the center of the civil conflict between the government and the Tamil Tigers. Today the north of Sri Lanka is peaceful and open again, though the scars of war and isolation are still visible. The north feels different in almost every way: the language, the rhythm of life, even the food. We found the area interesting, but not set up for easy travel yet. The landscape shifted as we drove north. The hills gave way to wide, flat plains that looked half land, half water. Much of Jaffna feels like it's floating on the sea, low-lying terrain, laced with lagoons and causeways. We crossed Sri Lanka's longest bridge, a narrow land bridge stretching towards the peninsula. Our first stop was Point Pedro, the northernmost point of Sri Lanka, marked by a simple pole known as the Northern Palm.
Careful.
Okay. You're funny. The goats here are cute and very friendly.
Yes. Hello. I smell the curry on your hand. Hand it over.
Fishing boats line the shore and rows of fish dry under the sun. The Pedro Lighthouse stands nearby, facing the Bay of Bengal, the farthest edge of Sri Lanka.
We find the fruit in other areas of the country, but this juice, we only can find it in Jaffna. There are 5 tastes we feel in our tongue, and this fruit, they say, all the 5 tastes we can taste in our tongue when we eat the fruit.
Back in town, we visited the Jaffna Fort, once built by the Portuguese, then taken by the Dutch, and later by the British. There isn't much left beyond the old walls and gates, but since there's not much else to see, we took a walk around the grounds. I found the waterfront near the fort more interesting and photogenic, with its fishing huts standing on stilts over the shallows, weathered by salt and wind. Our next stop is one of the most important Hindu temples in Sri Lanka. The atmosphere here is so different than the Buddhist temples we've seen elsewhere. To enter, men are required to remove their shirts, and everyone must dress modestly. Photography is forbidden inside, and I cannot show you the internal yard, gold-painted shrines, columns covered in vivid reds and blues, and worshippers moving between small sanctuaries as drums and bells echo in the air. We were lucky to witness a short procession, led by a man carrying a flame, accompanied by music and chanting. There were no other tourists, just locals, immersed in their rituals. The images I'm showing you don't look good because of the construction outside, but believe me, if you find yourself in Jaffna, this will be a place worth visiting. That evening, Sanchita took us to his favorite Indian restaurant, deep in the local neighborhood, about 10 kilometers outside of Jaffna. As we sat down, a huge metal bucket of vegetable curry appeared, along with a pitcher of sambal and the last 2 dosas in the house.
Fortunately, this is the last 2 dosas they have in the shop. Dosa.
Dosa.
So you two have it.
No,
I have had enough.
No. We'll share one with Mike. No.
No.
One for you, one for us. We'll share.
This is vade. Vade.
Apparently, you don't pay for the curry. You pay only for the parathas, dosas, and vade you eat. And the curry just keeps coming. Eating was an adventure in itself. No utensils, just scooping up liquid curry with bits of dosa with your fingers. It was messy, mildly awkward, and hilarious. And the food for 3 people plus drinks cost 1,200 rupees, or about $4. In the morning, we decided to visit the Thirunelveli vegetable market. The scene is noisy, chaotic, and colorful. This is not a place tourists usually wander into. So we drew curious stares. Some people watched us quietly and gave us thumbs up. Others said hello and broke into a grin.
Hello.
Hello.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Hi, how are you?
Hello.
Piles of eggplants, potatoes, tomatoes, okra, stacks of onions and fruits, cabbage, beans, a variety of unknown to me herbs, bright green chilies are stacked everywhere you look. This is where daily life happens, and it was wonderful to be in the middle of it. This market is large and worth walking around. Mike is a chef, so markets are always of special interest to us. Wherever we travel, we visit the market. As Mike likes to say, food is only the best way to understand the country's customs, culture, and traditions. Walking through a fresh market, we gain insight into people's everyday lives. What grows here? What's in season? What are people buying and when? How are ingredients prepared and sold? We also stopped briefly at the Jaffna Market, smaller and more subdued, with stalls selling packaged snacks and sweets.
See, this is Palmyra potato.
Less atmospheric than the vegetable market. Jaffna City and the surrounding peninsula were interesting to see. However, to be honest, the area doesn't feel ready for tourism yet. The beaches are littered, accommodation is limited to a few very basic guest houses, and English is not widely spoken. The warmth and hospitality we experienced in the south were harder to find here. Prices are surprisingly high for what's on offer, and the infrastructure is minimal. We bid farewell to Jaffna and headed south towards mainland Sri Lanka and the Wilpattu National Park. Along the way, Sanchita suggested a few stops at places of interest. The first stop, Our Lady of Madhu, a revered Catholic pilgrimage site tucked deep in the forest. Getting there took a while, as the church seems to sit in the middle of nowhere. At the entrance, a pair of armed guards stood watch, reminding us of the era's troubled past. Pope Francis himself has visited here a few years back. Further along the road, we stopped at the Buddhist rock temple, carved into a granite landscape. The temple complex includes a large reclining Buddha, a stupa, and a sacred body tree, said to have grown from a branch of the original tree brought from India to Anuradhapura. Legend has it that the bearers of the sacred sapling rested here for the night, and the tree took root. Inside one hall, the walls were covered in paintings, illustrating the 550 Jakarta tales, the moral stories recorded on ancient Buddhist palm leaves. This was a place I truly loved. It felt so peaceful and quiet. There were almost no visitors, just a handful of locals, and not a single tourist. It's not that the site was particularly photogenic, it simply felt special. The atmosphere carried a gentle serenity that made me feel at peace. Our final day in Sri Lanka is taking us to the wilderness of Wilpattu National Park, the largest and oldest park in the country, and one of its least crowded. We had arranged for a private full-day tour through a connection of Sanchita, and had a great time. It was an early start at 6 a.m. and 12 hours roaming through the forest. The air was crisp as we entered the gates, and a soft jasmine scent drifted through the open jeep. Wilpattu is quieter than the other parks we visited. No jeep convoys, no crowds, just long, dusty roads winding through the forest and open lakes where the sky mirrors in the still water. Our guide was knowledgeable and patient, pointing out tracks, birds, and details we would have missed otherwise. For example, a monitor lizard has laid eggs in this hole, and this hole is the nest of a bee-eater. The sightings came slowly, but each felt special. A sloth bear lumbering through the forest, turning over logs in search of food. A lone elephant standing knee-deep in a swamp. Herds of deer. Those two practiced their fighting skills for a while. A water buffalo was lounging in the water. A moon goose darted through the path. A baby crocodile was suntanning at the edge of the pond. Using the binoculars, We even managed to get a glimpse of a leopard across the lake. Bird life was abundant. Hornbills, eagles, vultures, the Sri Lankan jungle fowl, the country's national bird, a wild, flamboyant cousin of the rooster, and of course, countless peacocks strutting through the grass, their feathers flashing blue and emerald. How did the universe dream up something so dazzling? By midday, the heat was intense. We stopped for lunch at a small clearing where monkeys ran wild, swinging between trees and eyeing our snacks with determination. Hello, they found your biscuits. Be careful what you leave in the car. Later in the afternoon, the forest transformed again, bathed in golden light. The movement of the jeep and the hum of the cicadas were almost hypnotic. I could have easily fallen asleep, rocked by the rhythm of the trail. It also rained very briefly, and amazing scents were in the air after the rain. This was my favorite park, in terms of the nature, the wildlife, and the quiet safari. Most of the time, we were by ourselves in the park. And that's the magic of Sri Lanka, a tiny island with a big personality. You can sip tea above the clouds in the misty highlands and a few hours later be lounging on a beach by the ocean. Before you visit Sri Lanka, a few quick tips. Sri Lanka has microclimates. If you're planning to go to the central highlands, even in the middle of summer, bring a jacket for those cooler nights. When visiting temples, remember you'll need to cover your shoulders and knees, and you'll have to go barefoot. I know I'm repeating myself, but bring socks because the stones can get really hot. Sri Lanka is a family-friendly destination, and getting around is easier than you think, especially with a driver. We weren't sure at first. It felt strange and a bit too luxurious to hire a driver. For the very first time in any of our travels, we decided to hire a local guide, Sanchita, to take us around the country. This choice turned out to be a great option for Sri Lanka and saved us a lot of time without costing us too much. Having Sanchita with us meant we could cover huge distances, handle wild traffic, climb muddy hills, get lost in tiny villages, and still arrive everywhere, safely and on time. It didn't cost us much more than renting a car, but it saved us a lot of stress and gave us a local friend who knew exactly where to take us and where not to. Sanchita was up at dawn and drove us to the wee hours of the night so we can cover more terrain and see more of his country. If you hire a driver, keep in mind that many earn commissions at certain shops. We told Sanchita we weren't interested in shopping, so instead he brought us to a couple of places that offer short free presentations, and we actually enjoyed them and learned a lot. And now, here's Sanchita with a bit more advice for you.
Sri Lanka is a great destination to travel all around the year. But we have two seasons of rain. One is from May to September. The other one is from October to January. If you need to avoid the rain, the best season would be January to May. Also, something you should know, it can get colder in the Central Highlands. So you better pack your jackets. So when it comes to driving in Sri Lanka, we have a very specific way of driving and a culture attached to it. This can be challenging for foreigners. If you're thinking about hiring a driver in Sri Lanka, I recommend finding somebody who's reliable, who's punctual, who speaks good English. If you're wondering about how long you should stay, all the highlights in 8 to 10 days. But if you want a more relaxed and a deeper experience, I would say 2 to 3 weeks. I'm a local, born in Sri Lanka. I know the country from top to bottom. I have the best people working with me, and I always want my guests to have the best experience possible. So either you can choose a package from the site, or I can work with you to come up with the best itinerary possible.
If you're thinking about visiting Sri Lanka, we can truly recommend Sanchita Rangana from Amazing Getaway Tours. He made our journey smoother, safer, and so much richer. I'm so happy to see that you've made it until the end of this video. Thank you, your support means so much to me. For a little boost of love, please click that subscribe button. See you soon for another exciting destination.